Willkommen, welcome, bienvenue. La radio du festival Bildrausch.
Film Explorer, partenaire de Bildrausch pour cette nouvelle édition du Festival de cinéma de Bâle, festival qui bat actuellement son plein. Et dans cette effervescence entre les entrées et les sorties de projection, nous avons le plaisir d'accueillir sur notre plateau la cinéaste Nele Wohlatz. Bonjour à vous.
Bonjour.
Vous êtes née à Hanovre, vous avez étudié successivement les beaux-arts, la littérature, la scénographie et la philosophie dans diverses écoles et universités allemandes, avant de vous envoler pour l'Amérique latine, plus précisément pour l'Argentine, où vous avez résidé plus de 10 ans. Vous êtes l'autrice d'un premier film particulièrement remarqué, puisqu'il a remporté le Léopard d'or du meilleur long métrage à Locarno, du meilleur premier long métrage à Locarno en 2016. Il s'agissait de El Futuro Perfecto. Vous pratiquez un cinéma voyageur, cosmopolite, très sensible aux questions de déplacement, d'exil, de migration, qui se répercutent dans la manière de penser, de ressentir et de parler de vos personnages. Parmi vos influences, on peut citer la nouvelle vague taïwanaise, que l'on sent d'ailleurs présente dans votre sensibilité aux espaces urbains et à l'usage du plan prolongé, mais aussi au nouveau cinéma argentin, entre autres. Votre dernier film s'intitule Sleep with Your Eyes Open. Il est produit par Kleber Mendonça Filho et il a été retourné à Recife, une ville chère bien sûr au cinéaste brésilien que je viens de citer. Kai, une jeune taïwanaise, y promène sa solitude et son dépit amoureux et rencontre une communauté de travailleurs chinois, plus ou moins illégaux. En voulant retrouver la trace de l'un d'eux, nommé Fu Wang, elle tombe par hasard sur une boîte remplie de cartes postales, au dos desquelles est inscrite l'histoire de Xiao Xin, une jeune femme mélancolique qui se confie sur la perte de son sentiment d'appartenance à son pays d'origine. Les portraits et les errances de ces trois âmes en peine se superposent dans une réflexion sur la notion de déplacement et de présence à l'autre, à l'ère de l'uniformisation des cultures en une sorte d'imagerie générique et mondialisée. Pour commencer, Nele Wohlatz, j'aimerais vous interroger sur la forme singulière de votre film et cette manière assez radicale et soudaine de faire naître un second film et de nouveaux personnages à l'intérieur du premier film que nous pensions regarder. Est-ce pour nous faire ressentir à notre tour, à notre petite échelle de spectateurs, le sentiment de déplacement, de désorientation, qui est celui partagé par vos personnages que vous avez proposé de cette structure? To begin with, I'd like to ask you about the singular form of your movie and this rather radical and sudden way of giving birth to a second film on new characters within the first film we thought we were watching. Is it to make us feel on our own small scale as viewers the sense of displacement and disorientation that shared by your characters?
Yes, I think I wanted to give different opportunities of connection to the different people. The starting point was not Kai's story, or not the story of the tourist, but the story of the group of Chinese living in the skyscraper. So when I started to develop the film, I made many interviews with people from the Chinese community in Recife, together with my collaborator Shang Xiaobin, who was the actress of El Futuro Perfecto, and she was also my translator. And we were both spending time in Recife and also taking notes of our own experiences as visitors. And she was my door into this community of Chinese immigrants. But also I needed to have this other layer and this presence of a character who's somehow how do you say put mise en abysme,
mise en abîme.
Yeah, like who reflects on the fact that it's all outside view on it. So you might also read the whole center film, the ongoings in the building, as Kai's imagination while she's reading the postcards.
What is very interesting is that Kai disappeared during 1 hour, but she's, however, she's there, in filigrane, you know, like a kind of ghost. it's a very strange feeling as a viewer because it's like when the fire is under the ground, and we feel that in one way we will discover again this story and this character, but in another way. And you were not afraid to lose your spectator when you decide to write the movie like that, and to
I did, yes, but I also, as a spectator, like to get lost a little bit in films myself. I respect and I work with very classical narrative structures, but also in order to open them up and to push them a little bit further. So I think it's always come and go in between fulfilling expectations and then also breaking them. Of course, I lose some spectators, but I mean, you cannot think about how not to lose any spectator because it's not possible. Yeah.
Yeah, probably in a sense, I joined the conversation, Giuseppe di Salvatore. Probably in a sense there is also a form of coherence, because when a tourist like Kai, in a way, get lost, so in a way started tourist journey in a strange way, because it suspended her plans, and so it's like lost. It's actually the beginning of a real journey. It's the beginning of something that is not tourism, something that is really looking at what is going on in a place, not having already a plan. I want to see this and this and this, and coming back to home. And so, in a way, I think this what happened to Kai is I think it's very coherent with what's going after, because after we discover, because our perspective is more probably the one of the, I don't know, the Western country, more wealthy and going to Argentina or to Brazil in this case, just for tourism. And so we open to discover something. So you put the viewer in the mood of discovery, and that's why I think actually it's a rupture, is a moment of rupture, but at the same time it's also organic with Kai characters. That's why probably you were thinking, Nicolas, that she's remaining like a sort of ghost or a sort of presence.
In the editing, we changed the order a lot. We tried out different things. In fact, I wrote the film in a different order, and I think what we came out with is also that the first part has to be a little bit too long to be just an introduction and then we move to another story. So actually that the moment that the film changes and the characters change
after 20 minutes
is like a bit like if it would be after in between 11 and 15 minutes, I guess you would it would feel smoother because of this first plot point position. But also the fact that people disappear in a seemingly how do you say like all of a sudden is an experience that I made. I mean, the most of these people are acting for the first time and usually don't work with cinema, and it is something that I did in all my films before. In fact, in this film there are also professional actors, which is something new. But in El Futuro Perfecto, I was already working with this group of young Chinese who study Spanish, and it was a problem or challenge that people were disappearing quite suddenly. So because we shot over a long period only on weekends, and we had a very pleasantly and fun shooting. Like you could tell that people were enjoying to be in the film, and so we would shoot with them on one Saturday, and the next Saturday they would be not there. And I ask, where's Wang? And I say, he moved to Chile, or this girl moved back to China. And I was always surprised. And I found out that in the life of the people that I'm talking about, these changes seem quite arbitrary. And so when I started to write this film, I wanted to make this also a part of the structure, not to go against it, but to say, okay, there's a traditional Western dramaturgy, narrative structure that goes back to Greek dramaturgy, and then there's this film recipe for fiction, like the hero's journey. But what if the people you're working about have a completely different perception, and how is it, and what does it mean? And if I want to talk about feelings of non-belonging and experiences of uprootedness, shouldn't this also become part of the narrative structure? Yeah,
and that's very convincing, I think. And what I liked in this film, that the central part, is a narration, speak about Xiaoqing, our daily life, and actually the narration is brought through words, the words that she writes. So it's the novel, also this literary part, or text part, I would say, take the lead of the narration. At the same time, you don't feel where exactly you are going, and it's a bit like the fish in the aquarium. I have an impression that people, the Chinese community in this bubble that is very protected in a sense, but at the same time a bit lost in this skyscraper without contact with, or too many contacts with the indigenous people, so the people from Recife. So they move a bit in a circle, and it's a bit like the fish that moves, but then there is the glass and it comes back, and this circularity. So probably just to launch the question of details in your film, because how do you? That was probably written, or this is something that also experienced. I mean, the presence of the Aquarius, or
so the fish tank is an object that I encountered when I first entered a Chinese apartment in those towers, and it struck me that it reflected their own apartment in such a literal way, because it was a huge space but empty, and no decoration, not those objects that you start putting when you decide to make yourself a home. And they were living there for a long time, but the idea was not to stay, and the idea was not to accept this as a place to stay. So at one side it was this, and on the other, you said that you expressed very perfectly this feeling of floating around, and this glass that is like this transparency that could make you forget that there's a separation until you bump against it, which is something that in that moment in life happened to me in Argentina, because in that moment I already lived for a long time in Argentina, and I was an Argentine filmmaker, but still I found out, okay, there's a glass, there's a difference, and there's a space I cannot go beyond, and I started to feel sad about it. And then at this other hand, the fish tank also, of course, resembles the whole architecture where we set the film in. And this architecture is a globalized architecture that soon will be designed by artificial intelligence, because they render it on 3D programs, and there is no such a thing as studying the city and the space and how it's used and how a new building should contribute, but rather just putting it there with a back to the city and the nice panoramic view to the sea, and actually designing people in the 3D program that inhabit those spaces, and then the real human beings move in the towers when they are ready, and they somehow resemble or copy the model also of how to live it, no? So
just coming back to the metaphor of the aquarium and the bumping, I mean, you also put in your films a lot of accidents. I mean, it's very peaceful film. There is very peaceful atmosphere. There isn't mostly harmony in this community, of course. There are some little tension, but actually, it's also very smooth. But in all the film, there are some little moments of threat. Something is stolen. There is this watermelon coming from the sky, or even the money accident. So there are always little accidents. So. I think you wrote this, but what was your intention in constructing this poetic of accidents?
Well, I think accidents are also what triggers the next action and what moves the whole thing forward. And I don't know. I use a lot of what's happening to me and. Then I say, fuck, this is really shit right now, but I can make a scene out of it. Or things that were told to me, but maybe were too violent to represent them in a direct way. Because, of course, there's also really violent clashes happening, but I didn't feel entitled to stage them because I would need to understand Brazil way better when starting to represent violence, because you're immediately in very complex questions of class and race and so on. And for me, the rule was to stick to this very foreign perspective. So whenever accidents or things that were meaningful for the people I was working about and with would become too directly violent, I needed to invent a way to represent it. But and then I often went to decided to do it in a way where it's not actually 100% clear who causes the fall of the watermelon or this money thing. So it's open to an interpretation, and you could take it against you, or you could ignore it, or you could handle it in a way that better suits you, which is also something that tells a lot about the people who are affected, no? How they if they take it personal or not.
Just gonna come back now to the actors or non-actors or becoming actors in your film, because you play also with people that are not actors, and there is a documentary touch in the way you portray also people. Probably something about this. So what was your process in developing the characters, and mainly what was the contribution or what you discover also from your characters or the people that play in your films? I try to let them contribute as much as possible, which was way less in this film than in the films I did before. But I am fascinated by how should I put it? I really like when we go through very long processes of rehearsing, where it is about basic technique of acting, but also mainly about entering a space of trust and constructing a kind of language that we can work with, because there was no common language for everyone, and there was a lot of translation going on. But I really like the moments I
enjoy most is when I don't know if the people are being themselves or reacting out of themselves or out of the character, and when you have the presence of both truths, the fictional and the truth of the real person. In fact, maybe I don't even like the super virtuous psychological acting so much, because it lacks of this doubt, and I like to, yeah.
And more precisely, I would like to know something about this little polarity between Fu Hang and Chao Qing. They are probably the main two protagonists, because in your film, I mean, yourself, you are German, you come from Germany, you are in Argentina, you go to Recife to do a film and about Chinese people and Taiwanese people going to Brazil and coming from Argentina or from Taiwan, etc. So I mean, and people in a way try to find a sort of comfort zone in this non-belonging, as you told before, and this in comfort zone. Actually, we can say a post-identitarian reflection or something like this. But these two characters, Fu Hang and Chao Qing, are very different, because one is trying to question his own identity in a sense through geography, not through countries, not through nations, but through geography, through connection to physical reality. On the other side, Chao Qing, she's like a surfer. She's like a person that is nowhere and everywhere, and probably her attachment is just writing. It's just her own story. It's just her own observation. So they're really very different pattern or different way of interpreting this comfort zone in a difficult transnational or transidentitarian reality. So how did you pick up these two pattern? Was something that you felt in yourself, in your own experience, or something that also came through the meeting with people there in Recife or in China? I don't know.
So the writing was there from the beginning in a very first version, and the chronicle she starts to write a little bit also out of a mood or out of the accident of finding those postcards, become the connection between her and the third protagonist, with whom she never meets in person. For me, the writing was important because it's her way to accept or to make meaning out of the meaningless. And I think she's not only writing about herself, but also about all of them. She's becoming the chronist, and gives words to the things that for the others are mainly abstract feelings of frustration or sadness. And then Kai, the tourist who finds the postcards and reads it, actually is the other side that is also needed for her project. Yeah, that someone reads it actually, no? So this was there from the beginning. And then Fu Hang, for me, he was more inspired in people I met in Recife who really chose not to talk about things, like who try not to talk about it in order to not make it real, which was also something that I learned a lot about Xiaoxin and Xiaobin, the actress of El Futuro Perfecto, who I knew both from Buenos Aires, and about their families and their parents. Whenever I asked them things about their parents or how their parents look at their choices and what they're doing, most of the time it was, no, we don't talk about it. They don't talk about it. They ignore it as a way not to make it real. Like as long as you don't put it in words and long as you don't make it language, it can be ignored as something not real. That I found very interesting. So Fu Hang is this character who is like this until he explodes, because he cannot deal with it anymore, with things happening to him.
And something very nice I found in this character. I love this one. I could spend time with him. And these little things, it also speaks about your probably methods or your way of doing films with little touch and with the very meaningful details. It comes in the moment with this T-shirt. Weakness is a choice. And for me, it's so a wonderful slogan. And it does it fit to your film, or do you like it?
Yeah, this T-shirt was on a Chinese young man that I met in Recife in the first trip I did with Xiaobin, and we hang out with him, and he showed us his city and his life, and we worked with him in the warehouses and just followed him to. And he had this T-shirt, and it's on a lot of photos from that time. And then Karina, who was helping me with the casting and like looking for Chinese non-professional actors for the film, at one point she went to Sao Paulo to look for people, and she found this T-shirt, and I said, buy it, we need this T-shirt. And at one point I had a lot of slogan T-shirts in the script because I loved them, and then it was like, yeah, maybe it's too much into the face. Let's reduce it a little bit. But I love this one especially because you can read it in two ways. I think the first one is a very neoliberalist capitalist slogan, like you have to be strong. If you're weak, it's your choice. But winners are winners because they work hard and they are hard and strong. And then, of course, there's the other meaning, which is that you can be fragile also, and yeah, this is the one I like, and I think this film chooses to be fragile.
And I think it's really something that connect to us, this fragility, and it's something that we really identify very easily in this film. And even if we somehow probably navigate or float like a fish in an aquarium, in the end, we always feel this empathetic, or this empathy with the characters, probably exactly thanks to this fragility that each one has. So in something that really.
And also, and I wanted to add to your question before about the connection between Fong and Xiaoxin, that then within all this fragility and isolation and sadness, for me the very important moments in the film, or the main moments, are actually the ones where they do connect, and where it is a friendship that is a little bit beyond this binary idea of this is a friendship or this is a love, or and I was happy that it worked out between those two actors, because they never met before the shooting, because Fuang, I only met him on Zoom, and Xiaoxin was living in Buenos Aires, and he was in Taiwan, so it was a happy accident, and they really connected. They became very good friends over the time we spent there, which was something I didn't expect because they are so different.
And the connection between Kai and Fuang at the end of the movie is very strong too. And something special is that Kai, at the beginning of the movie, she don't believe in the power and the utility of a translation, and she talked about that with a guy on the beach. And at the very end of the movie, she proposed to Fuang to translate the word of Xiaoxin. So she learned something during all this time, when she was disappeared for us.
I think that's the funny thing, that at one side, the moment we start talking, we produce misunderstanding, and at the same time, there's no other thing. We can just try to keep communicating and try to understand something from each other. So I think both are true. Like you can criticize this and deconstruct it and say everything is relative, as long as you like want, but at the end of the day, you are a human being and the other is too, and there are zones where we can connect.
And in the places you film, you find solution for framing and staging the characters. Can you tell us about this geometric way of dividing up the space in the shots, making extensive use of doors, windows, thresholds?
Yes. You mentioned before the Taiwanese new wave.
Yeah, because it remember me. Tsai Ming-liang, for example, Edward Yang, Wu Shouqian.
Yeah, yeah. And
the Trinity.
and it's true. And what I only understood when I, after the shooting, went to Taiwan for the post-production, which was my first time in Taipei, I was so struck because first days I felt I was moving through films of these three. And after some days I found that Taipei is actually really ugly. And it's a city out of non-places, but it didn't feel to me like this from the beginning because of the layer and the this mystical layer that those filmmakers lay over all these non-places. And I found that the synergy between non-places and this kind of urbanism, functional urbanism that is lacking of layers of historicity and and cinema, which still uses it as location to have human emotion fill this. It's like an amazing synergy because it's like then nothing is too much. Like it's just the essential elements and this and in their work the city needs their films and the films need this kind of architecture. But this is something I only understood after the shooting when I went to Taipei. But for me, Recife, and this is also why I chose this city, has very similar qualities out of a very different history, of course. But there's this whole idea of development in Brazil, which is, okay, let's construct the big car streets. Let's construct everything accessible via cars and those big bridges and everything. And then eventually development will follow. And of course, this was a partly utopian idea. And it's not very much succeeded in like actually the separation is way bigger. So Recife at the beginning had quite a dystopian impression on me, and then spending time in the city and meeting its people, of course, I started to have a way more individual and tender relationship with the city. But So I really like to shoot on ugly places, on places that lack of their own history and charisma, and then also this kind of architecture with all the glass and this fish tankiness gave this opportunity to compose shots where you have a foreground and a background, and you have at the same time in one shot the characters and the outside world, but there's always a separation. There's always a threshold that they cannot really pass.
Giuseppe.
No, I was just thinking that actually this form of violent modernism in architecture and or way of flatness of is also let emerging the human aspect and most specifically the bodies of the people even stronger, and that's for me was probably the scene of the dance that was in the moment in the among the actually Fu Ang started with this wonderful dance, and that's even stronger because you know that this is in a tiny room inside within a skyscraper in a sort of non-place somewhere in Recife, etc. So it's something, as you say, ugly, but I can understand why you like, because it's also a way, an element of contrast that make the human even stronger, actually.
Totally, yeah.
Many things are missing for the characters in the movie. For example, the sun is missing for Fuang because he wants to sail some umbrellas.
The rain is
But
missing.
yeah, the rain is missing. Sorry, the rain, not the sun, the rain. And your movie shows a world that lacks stories through which people can exist and find meaning in their lives. And your characters are in search of that missing story, maybe, which they may find in Zhaoqin words. What do you think about that? Maybe I'm true, or
Let me think about it. They miss story. I mainly thought of the three main characters as three different possibilities of losing sense of belonging. I didn't want to reduce it to one thing, and especially not to something that could be in like a socially critic direct sense. Because I thought, okay, this is a feeling that can come over anyone in any moment and for many reasons. So I think, I didn't ask myself in the way that you're putting it, but more like, okay, what's missing in the life of each of these three, and I wanted it to be quite different. I was reading in that moment when I was writing. I was reading a lot of poetry and also short stories, and I was interested in how, when they added a collection of short stories, how is the relationship between the stories, because they can be completely different contexts and things going on, and the connection in between them is very indirect, and this way of connection, I was wondering if I could use this for a film.
Yeah, I think we touched many aspects of your film. Thank you very much, Nele, to discuss with us
Thank
about
you for
your wonderful
for
film.
speaking with me.
So, and we are waiting for your next film, of course.
Me too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Willkommen, welcome, bienvenue. La radio du festival Bildrausch.